I've got a question, got lots of questions actually, but I'm going to stick it to one question for each individual, and then I'm going to throw it back out to everyone to ask their own questions. So which one do I ask? So one of the things I found intriguing, when you were tracing the hacking team, were they aware of your group following them?
Basically, they were already in big trouble because most of all the emails went public. So what we were doing was not so like to understand what they're exactly doing, but more to understand what metadata can do to us. So what you can learn about someone from analyzing metadata. What is really funny and what I'm really like proud of is that in some kind of indie data analyst scene that exists probably, this became some kind of really popular piece. And so it's like, I think 30,000 times like viewed, share or whatever. So, you know, they already have their own problems. Now they became some kind of study how to do like metadata analysis. So for me, that was nice. And okay, basically what we did after we published this, I just went on holidays and like turn off everything that I have and go dark and
yeah.
So, but they didn't publicly said anything about the research. Yeah.
I've got just one more question, because I'm sure this is going to be happening, because friends of mine that are working with technology have been approached. I was just wondering if you've been approached by any particular groups to do surveillance on others for information at all yet?
Sure. After every event, most of the events, not like this, but like when it's more like about like marketing or stuff like this, I'm really usually approached by people who want to hire me to do like surveillance of like customers or to analyze metadata of whoever. You know. But we don't do that.
Okay, good.
But I'm really tempted now to do like metadata of analysis of these Panama leaks. That can be like an interesting piece of metadata to deal with.
Right. So, Joanna, have you got a microphone?
Yes. Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah. No.
Well, I think I can read what I wrote. So, obviously, over 200,000 users for this. And I was just wondering, do you think that most users who logged into the Virtual Watchers network joined so they can have, did they join mainly just because it was an excuse for them to have a sinister game at other people's expense because it was legal? Because when people are allowed to do something legal that's quite nasty, you tend to find that a lot of them kind of feel that they can do that, like in wars. And also that site online, I don't know if it reminded me of that. There's someone when you can go online on a live webcam and you can shoot. I think you can shoot. I'm not sure we shoot. I think it's animals. And so I was wondering what you thought about that.
I think that yes. I think that people. There are several reasons. I think it's very complex. It's like there is a lot of layers, but definitely one of the reasons it's because they could do it and they felt powerful by doing it. There is not a very important layer that they didn't have to explain, but most of the people that were actually participating were people that were retired, or they didn't have a job, or they were sick at home. One of the most active persons, it was a woman that she was sick. And she was she had to stay at bed always. And so I think that people had several reasons. I'm not sure, because I remember when I was acting as a virtual deputy, I really took this role. no? And I remember watching the cameras, and there's also this component of gaming and socialization, which is also very, very strong. It's another reason. So I think it's very, very complex. I need to admit now that I've been in the last 2-3 months so focused in the project that I didn't have the time to get a little bit of perspective and analyze it further. But we're planning on writing a paper and publishing in the end of the year with the anthropologist. So yeah, we are planning to analyze this in much more depth. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on because I know this one. Okay. What can I say here? One of the things I'm sure you can elaborate. The impression I got was that it didn't really matter what computer the chip was in. The information can be traced. And I was wondering, what would you recommend, other than not using a computer? Is there any other operating systems like Linux that's better than any other operating system? Or is it all down to the actual physical interaction of the computer itself that can give away so much about yourself?
I think that's a question we do get a lot. I'm not sure it's framed the right way in this. So how I like to frame things is, tech is a solution to a question. Okay, so. And that question is not, is Linux better than Windows?
Oh no, that's so,
or something along those lines, or is a Mac better than even from a security perspective, that each tool and each machine has components that will potentially protect your safety, and others that will betray it. And so to work securely and safely, very often you have to build multiple different layers, and they're not concentric layers, because no one tool, and I'm going to rattle off a few 3-letter acronyms now if anybody in the audience wants to go search for them, like PGP, VPN, SSL, TLS, there's a whole load of them, OTR as well, and do not take from this that if you use them you are safe. That is absolutely not the message. The message is that they solve a particular problem, and if that's a problem that you need solving, then that's the right answer. But it's not, there's no real way to give a generic thing when it comes to both security, because ultimately you're the weakest link, and you can have all the security measures in the world, and you get drunk one night and put in your password or whatever, you do something wrong and gone. So perfect security, and that's why it comes down to, most people don't even know when their security has been breached. So the very first thing is put in place detection mechanisms. So we can talk about prevention and how to keep you secure, but the first step is most people don't even know, and the hacking team hack was a very, very good one, because 300 gigabytes left their office undetected. So the question I usually ask people is, what do you have in place to know if 300 gigabytes has left your machine or your home or your office? And most people just look blankly and go, I don't have anything. So that's the detection side of things, and then you've always got to presume that you are going to get screwed, and make sure that one mistake doesn't give away the entire keys to the kingdom. So it's called compartmentalization, but I don't want to get too technical on it.
Okey-doke. Carmen? Obviously, I've got loads of other questions for everyone, but I'm just going to try and stick to what I did to earlier. The question I was going to ask you answered, which was, I was going to say, did you curate the algorithms, because the piece was so interesting that came back. The items were so interesting, and I'm going to answer that one, no. And so, no. So I'm going to ask you the other question. So, what do you feel are the positives and negatives of bots and algorithms, and the potential for decentralization?
That's a hard one. I think bots is going to be a term we're not going to use as a, like, it's going to be diversified, because I think there's so much going on in implementing bots on so many levels, and I mean, it's always a question of what are they used for, but I think we're really we don't have the experience yet to really deal with bots. And I think there's some really, really interesting stuff going on around bots and algorithms. There's the whole question of how are we legally going to deal with, things like, self-driving cars, AI in trading systems that produce glitches and nobody knows where they come from. So I think systems are becoming really complex also. There's also the other way around, people acting as bots to enable bots to be online. I think half of the traffic online is already generated by bots. So sometimes I really wonder about this internet thing, maybe it's just going to be this, I don't know, maybe we're all going to get really fed up and just leave and do something else but I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yes. Okay, so anyone who has a question out there, hands up please. There was...
I can follow up on...
If you're quick.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to say one of the best uses of bots is to screw with other bots. I don't know how that system, that camera system stayed online for more than 30 seconds before it was DDoS would have just gone, and why there wasn't 200,000 people signing into that, having bogus reports, just to have all the Republicans go chasing after these ghosts that are somewhere else.
So there's a question over there.
Hello. There it is. Question for Vladin, really. Quick one is, are you going to do the Panama Papers next? You can't hear me? Yeah, the Panama Papers.
How or...
Are you going to do the Panama Papers next?
I don't know. I just spoke with some people who have access to data, and I will... Okay, it will be a challenge to do that. But the problem, or solution, I don't know, it's that they want to do this in other way. Like they want to approach the problem more from this kind of journalism side and to research on another way. If we do metadata analysis on that, we will uncover like bunch of different things. And our method, it's not the same like their method is. And when I was like speaking on some event that was like mostly lawyers and journalists, they were all shocked because like our methodology was like really different. And most of the journalists will say that our method, it's not ethical, it's not by some journalist approach, so on, so on. And a lot of them ask us like in a way, did you like ask the hacking team for their opinion? Because you cannot publish something before you ask them. I said, no, because there is no opinion. It's metadata. Like as Snowden said, metadata doesn't lie. So it's true. I don't. From my point of view, I didn't need to ask anyone before publishing because it's like metadata. No, I would like, but.
Anyone else? Question over here.
I just wanted to ask you again about your experience of using that method, and if there was anything that you felt or you were surprised that you didn't get out of the data that you were looking at. Was there any information that you were expecting to get and you didn't?
Okay, for me, I'm not data analyst. Okay, I'm professor of art. So, and as I say, stupid as an artist, but okay. So, for me, it was like a learning process. Basically, what we did, we used tools that we can get for free, and basically we used like a 14 days trial of Tableau. So we were like learning on the way. And it really felt as some kind of adventure, but really crazy one, because you are like thinking for each pattern what it means and how you can discover more about someone by watching those like dots or so on and so on. I spoke with, and at the end I felt like, okay, this is a tool. This is a tool, it's really like dangerous tool, because you can do a lot of bad things with that. Just an ethical problem was, okay, I'm okay to do this because they are doing this to us on the daily basis. So I felt, in this case, this is not a problem. But like, if I use this to analyze other people, that's like really, really, really bad. And it's really scary how and the biggest problem after this, I start to think, okay, how I can trick metadata, how I can trick, and basically you cannot. You need to change completely your behavior in order to trick this to produce some other data. So that means that you will need to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to send emails, not to repeat the same pattern of behavior. It's really dark place, but also really exciting.
Over there, please. Someone there, the woman with the red hair. That's Jonathan Dimbleby.
Hello. Listening to you all talk about these kind of different aspects of bot culture, I think we're hearing that we're in a moment where we have the opportunity to really rethink the relationship between ethics and legality. And I'm interested, it'd be really good to hear you, if you have any ideas as to kind of what mass changes in the law that we might see as a result of, or any kind of patterns in changes to the law that we might see because of the kind of growth of bot culture.
Specifically, are you asking anyone?
Anyone who has something to say.
Okay.
I think that's a great question, and one we, I want to say, successfully address every day at PI, but unfortunately it's a struggle every day, primarily because lawyers and techies in some ways see the world very, very similarly, but in other ways see it very, very differently. And one example that I give, and I'm usually told not to give this example because it's a bit weird, but I know a few people had seen that laser pointers were being used to bring down planes. So as a scientist, I look at this problem and go, well, what's the actual problem? Planes are vulnerable to laser pointers. How do we fix it? Well, we got to put in new windscreens. So no laws are going to really do that, unless you're going to mandate that Boeing come in and Airbus and all that sort of stuff. Another option might be, which is the more techie approach and IT security approach at this stage, which is, well, let's give everybody a laser pointer and have a competition to bring one down. And I guarantee you, very, very quickly, all those planes will be fitted with a windscreen that is not vulnerable to those laser pointers, because it fixed the problem. The lawyers and the politicians wanted to try and ban laser pointers. Now, all that doesn't really fix the problem. The vulnerability in our systems, in our planes, in everything around us is still there. The law seems to offer this veneer of protection that in reality is no protection at all. And so I think the recognition that law needs to come down to I want to say lower level, and probably techies will kill me for saying this, come down to a lower level of detail and specificity, and to basically stop having nonsensical interpretations or nonsensical opinions of what the law is. So, for example, in the Edward Snowden stuff, we found out that the British government can collect all your communications, can automatically process them, can do all sorts of pattern matching, recognition. They can print out transcripts. They can try and look for keywords like terrorism or whoever the latest terrorists are today. They'll put in words for that, and there'll be different terrorists the next day. And Basically, they can do all that and they still haven't intercepted your communication. Because for them, it requires a human eyeball to look at the content of what you said. Not analyzing the metadata, which, by the way, is a work of art when you see it, but behind it is a very, very strong and powerful message about how vulnerable you are. But it also highlights the problem. It's not that that tool exists. It's that we shouldn't be vulnerable to that kind of analysis in the first place. And there's absolutely no technical reason at this point why we should be. All the end-to-end crypto that I'm sure many people have heard been trotted out, and Apple, they want to backdoor end-to-end encryption, that was all discovered in the 40s and 50s by GCHQ. And it has taken, now, I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theories, and more people are than I am, but something must have happened where we didn't get end-to-end encryption, not only after it was discovered by GCHQ, and of course they didn't tell us, but it was also discovered by 3 blokes about 10 years later, and it took a long time for us to be safe in our communications. I can't find any real reason why. So in terms of law, I think there's 2 sides. There's the prohibition side in terms of giving us the veneer of safety without actually making us safer. And at the same time, the law can be used in a proactive way if you have the sufficient levers at your disposal. And I think in many of the fights against governments, you have still an insufficient number of legal levers to affect change. But when it comes to companies, you're really struggling for levers that you can use. And so I think we need to broaden the scope, in particular of, say, in data protection, what it means to identify somebody. So if I have how wrong your clock is, plus I have some other information like how long it takes you to run a particular program, that's unique. If I know your 2 most common locations, that's your home and your work. Very few people work in the same place and live in the same place. So there are all these different things. So the law needs to recognize the threat that data poses, but also as a carrot-stick approach needs to mandate in regulation that we must be safe and that the protocols that we rely on and the devices that we rely on must be tested and must be safe for us to use.
Any other questions? Just there first, and then there's another Cian here.
Hi, this question to Joanna. I just wondered because probably throughout the whole talk it seems to be that...
Nearer the mic?
Throughout the talk, actually, I think with everyone it seems to be that the question that always comes up is about technology, but sometimes humans don't get mentioned as much, and I know you said that you're working with a sociologist, I think? You're working with a sociologist and an anthropologist?
I'm working with an anthropologist, yeah.
An anthropologist, okay. And so I wondered how much maybe addiction is, like human addiction, is actually as much a part of the problem as the technology of the cameras.
Okay, sorry, I didn't understand.
Human addiction with technology.
What's the relationship you're asking?
No, it's just that maybe the problem isn't so much sometimes the technology, but also the human issue of, say, addiction.
Of addiction. Yeah, there was some, I couldn't obviously show all the conversations, but there is like few people that they mention the word addiction. It's like how addicted I am to it, that I wouldn't know what to do with my life without it, I wouldn't know what to do with my time. So yeah, it's a word that actually appeared several times, and we found it was very, very interesting. As I said before, we are planning to publish a paper on all these things, because now that we have actually all the data in front of us, I mean, it's a piece of art, but it also acts as an archive for us. And we're gonna gather all this information, write a paper, take conclusions. So we'll publish it online, so definitely make it available.
And then, sorry, do you mind if I ask just a second part? So the question is sort of how much you feel maybe an ethical issue around providing a platform between Facebook users that wouldn't necessarily have come together apart from, obviously, there was already the one platform, but then it's like a second one where they can communicate more so in a community.
Sorry, I don't know why, but I can't understand you properly. I'm so sorry.
It's just the echo of the room.
It's really strange. Did you hear?
No, I can't hear.
Okay.
I hear echoes.
I think it was about the fact was Facebook providing that community for those
exactly.
people to
So it's a second platform,
Yeah.
which is almost like the problems, maybe an ethical issue in terms of building a Facebook group that wouldn't have come together in a more kind of problematic kind of communication sort of way.
Actually, there is other platforms that are still on. I mean, treating the same issue. Actually, there is this idea, I mentioned it, of course, but there is other platforms that they gather some of the same members that were part of this regional group, and they're still doing the same thing. So Facebook didn't close the group, actually. They did it because it wasn't useful anymore. So, yeah.
So, your question. Have you got the mic?
We do the last question.
Okay.
Okay, listening to all of you, I kind of came up with an interesting sci-fi scenario. I mean, you were focusing on metadata, you artificial intelligence, and the whole shrouds of secrecy with each corporation, and you with anonymous purchases online, and you with voyeuristic, like, potentially, addictive, programs to basically just watch people across the border. Now, let's say, because, I mean, this is one thing that we're actually kind of looking at and focusing on is the parts to make a drone are all pretty much available online. If you could buy it with Bitcoin, you could do that anonymously. And let's say you wanted to turn it into a cruise missile or something, and you wanted to base your targets off of metadata and use a rudimentary artificial intelligence program to find those potential targets, and you created this this website, within the darknet where you can kind of like rat trapping or something, where you can just watch these different feeds and pick out these individual targets that you want. If that was like just open source where anybody could use it, or if a corporate entity or something wanted to indulge in warfare itself, like let's say Blackwater or something like that, wanted to do that, like where what would your, based on what you know, like what are ways that you could potentially safeguard against something like that?
Can I get Carmen to answer that?
I was just going to say, I'm fairly certain that that's exactly how the US Air Force does a lot of its drone stuff in Afghanistan, is based on metadata from mobile phones. And so it's not really that much of a sci-fi.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because for every program the CIA has, there's pretty much an open source program out there you can use for, say, doing open source intelligence, you can basically find out where a person sleeps based off of one website, and it's all out there. So I mean, how do you feel about that getting into somebody who's not in military's hands, something like that? I don't know.
So, Carmen?
Well, I'm not sure about whether it's about whose hands that machine gets into, really, because it's bad, and I think parts of it are already reality. I think what we, for example, realized, which is not a lot of help, but it did at least psychologically help me a bit, is with the Snowden leaks, you realize, okay, so data seems to be something that is really insecure, because if the NSA can't keep their data secure, then, we're all sort of lost. And that sort of levels the playing field in the sense that I think the only thing you can hope for is that society will develop more into something peaceful, where people want to cooperate with each other. I mean, you have this, for example, in Germany, you have amongst security experts, hackers, whoever, you have this ethics that you don't go and work for the government. It's not okay to do that. I know some people do that, but I mean, there was this example of I think he's German, but he lives in Switzerland at the moment. He worked for a security company, and he programmed something that he became to realize, you know, while programming, that it was a what we call a state Trojan. So a Trojan sort of a malware thing that the state deploys on target computers. And he realized he was working on this. He didn't realize this at the beginning because, you know, you only get to work on a certain task. And as soon as he realized, he finished the code and he published it online open source, which made it totally unusable for the state, of course. And it let other people study, you know, the architecture. And I guess I mean, it's not a lot, but it's really, I think it's about educating people, I guess, and, you know, trying to, you know, we, as artists, I talk a lot to art students or other artists, and a lot of times there's still people out there who tell me, well, I have nothing to fear because I don't do anything wrong. You know, here I am with my Mac, and I do feel that in the past few years with the Snowden revelations, for example, and everything else that's happened since, people have become a bit more worried about this online world that seemed to be totally something different than their physical life, and they've become to realize that it is all connected, and that, you know, and I think that's good. I think maybe we're all getting more and more literate and understanding more and more where this is going.
Do you want to?
How long we got? Are we? We're over, are we?
If you want to.
I think we're done. I'm just going to say quickly, because I want to round it off, if that's okay, is that I've been researching about Jeremy Bentham, who some people, historians, would know that he, you know, designed the Panopticon, which was a prison where you can have just a few security centralized, looking at everyone, and obviously that was George Orwell, 1984, and now technology is now kind of a netopticon, which basically views everything, and not just that, we don't know, just like Jeremy Bentham's original idea, is that you don't know whether you're being looked upon or spied upon or not, but you just might be being spied upon. And that's the thing we do. We're dealing not just with technology, we're dealing with paranoia and psychology and fear. Yeah, so go on.
Anybody out here who wants to put a fake Facebook post on your Facebook profile?
Maybe, because if you give me the money.
I've got 3.
Or do a Google search for dildo. Who wouldn't do that? And if anybody would self-censor? Oh, sorry. Yeah, you probably don't need the microphone to say that word on camera. But if anybody here winced at the thought of searching for something, that says a lot about how much your response is conditioned by what you think is going on out there. And if you did wince, try and figure out how to be able to get access to the information that you want and not give away the information.
Okay, so thank you for coming. I'd like to say thank you to AND Festival people. Thank you for Disruption Lab. Thank you for the artists for coming along. I know that we should be discussing this a lot more, and it didn't go on, but that's it.
Yeah, you can take the conversation out of this space into the showcase space, which is next door. We're actually about to start a tour of the Art of Bots temporary exhibition, so you are more than welcome to go and join that. There'll also be tours running tomorrow.
Okay.
And also, I just want to quickly say thank you to all of you for your generous contributions. It was very good. Thanks. And of course, Tatiana, who actually curated this panel. And I know that she has some very good news around the future of developments, if you want to just...
Yeah, just want to say that the Disruption Network Lab program will go on in Berlin as well. So if you are interested, the next event will be the 17th and 18th of June, and we are going to discuss, analyze, and reflect on the discourse of the surveillance underwater and through the undersea network cable. So from the air, we go downside in the ocean. And this will be the 17th and 18th of June. So if you want to read more and follow us, the website is disruptionlab.org. And I feel also to thank you for the invitation. And of course, thanks everybody that has been with us today. Thanks a lot.
Sorry. One last thing as well, just as Tatiana just referenced, she curated a show called Network Disruption, which formed part of a European project that we are part of called Masters in Service. So if you want to continue the conversation, also see some of that exhibition, please look that up and have a look. It's supported by Creative Europe and also the Arts Council. So quickly, just to say thank you to Somerset House for giving us this glorious space as well. Okay, thank you everyone. Bye.